a news article. I'm going to use this in my series, my sermon series. This is an example of a media story that this randomly flew across my phone 5 days ago. Okay. Mind you, this is a fourth party news outlet, online guy. It's not a big news thing. But
themarysue.com is what Thad's reading from.
It's Zoe Hamed is the name of the author.
All right.
So, but TechSpot is the name of the website that promoted it. However, it is still a news article, and it still flew across my phone for me to consume.
Which means you're not the only one.
Exactly. It's still media. This is the headline. Brain damage linked to increased likelihood of religious fundamentalism. New study finds.
Oh my God.
Okay, hold on. I'm not done. Let me... This gets worse. Okay. The study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences took an innovative approach by examining two groups of individuals with focal brain lesions, resulting from injuries and disorders, and the cohorts consisted of 106 Vietnam veterans who suffered traumatic brain injuries in combat decades ago, and the other included 84 patients from rural Iowa who experienced strokes and surgical complications to the brain injuries. For years, researchers have studied the psychological factors associated with religious fundamentalism, which involves strict adherence to beliefs. Traits like authoritarianism, resistance to doubt, and cognitive inflexibility have indeed been linked to fundamentalist mindsets. However, a fascinating new study now reveals that brain damage can increase the likelihood of developing rigid, unwavering faith in God. So basically, that news article is insinuating, okay, that if you believe in God and you're radical about Jesus, there is a likelihood you have brain damage. Now, their study is based on 192 people. Did you hear that when I read that quote?
In Ohio or something?
Iowa had 84 people from Iowa who have brain cancer.
Okay.
And 106 Vietnam vets. Now, Iowa is fairly known as conservative. Vietnam vets, there's no atheists in foxholes. Chances are they know the Lord.
Yeah.
So you're taking two very focused groups and trying to create a study. They even called it a study, which is outrageous because it's not a study. Okay? This is way too minute to be called a study. And then it flies across my phone. Obviously, it's targeted media. They know I'm a Christian. I may find this interesting. But how many other people, like Jake said, are being fed that? And it is an outright, I think that is considered a lie. Because the way they frame it is not the way the study was shown.
At the very least, it's a lie by omission.
It's
absolutely
deception.
If everything in that article is true, it's still lying because it's not giving you the whole context. It's trying to build a message based on fragments of information.
And the bias of the author, right? I would assume.
What kind of water's in Iowa anyway?
They're shipping on.
When you ask questions, ladies and gentlemen, these are the ones you got to ask.
They're just shipping on that Jesus juice.
They don't got fluoride in there. Anyway.
It makes the frogs pray.
Oh my God.
But I'll be here all week.
Man.
Wow. That was not hit me.
I did not see that coming.
Okay, anyway, I couldn't resist. That was a good one. I couldn't resist.
That was a good one.
It makes the frogs pray.
That
anyway,
should be the first title of your first sermon for your new series.
Oh boy. Okay. Anyway. My point is,
Yes.
that is an example of media manipulation, which I believe is a spiritual thing too.
Ooh.
Okay. And we have to be aware of this. And David brought up politics, so this is fair game. But
Thanks, David.
Thanks,
No, I'm
David. Okay, so our presidential candidate, Kamala Harris, went from a not spoken about at all figure, very, very rarely, actually disliked by a lot of left-leaning news outlets even, and media sources, to the frontrunner candidate by default, And some would argue coup and all this other stuff, which whatever, doesn't matter. But bottom line is everybody's singing her praises now, literally, 90 days? Not even 90 days, 60 days
Yep.
later. So there is a, 180-degree shift in the narrative. Have you guys ever seen there's a YouTube video, I saw it on YouTube, but it's like a TikTok video, and it shows news outlets talking about COVID and different things, and they all have the exact same wording.
Yeah.
And it'll go, and then we're talking Fox to CNN, conservative to liberal, it doesn't matter.
And tons of local stations.
And
countless.
local stations, it's in everywhere, and it's the same exact narrative. It's like a 3-word phrase or whatever. And there's like, I've seen like 3 of them.
There's like compilations out there.
Compilations,
Yeah.
and there's one where it panned out, and all these little screens are all saying the exact same words at the exact same time, and you can't hear the differentiation. That's how crazy the narrative was. And when we're talking hundreds of channels, is the one I saw.
That's crazy.
That's demonic. I mean, I hate to be weird.
Yeah.
It just seems demonic.
It comes off as Legion, man.
It does. It comes off as this chanting, we're all together, I mean, like the power of a lie, it takes on a form of its own. I can't remember who quoted it. Maybe, I think it was Hitler. Didn't he say that you say a lie enough, it becomes the truth? Is that right? Who said that?
That was either Hitler or Goebbels, I think. It was one of them.
Right. Or maybe one of them stole it from the other.
Yeah. But Joseph Goebbels was Hitler's propaganda minister.
Oh,
so,
there you go. That makes sense.
yeah.
Okay.
Did
Got
he
it.
live through World War II or did he die?
Let
me Google.
His brain's in a jar somewhere. It's okay.
Yeah.
No, he died. he got murderized.
He got unalived.
Well, actually, no. Joseph Goebbels actually took his own life.
Oh, okay.
Now that I remember, he
Wait,
actually
like the Clintons, like that kind of take their own life?
no. After he was like a true believer. He was like in Hitler's inner circle.
true Nazi.
He was a true believer. So after Hitler took
May
his
fir-
own
May
after
1st,
Hitler took his own life, and the Allies were closing in. Him and his wife actually they shot all their children and then and then shot themselves.
I remember that. No, I remember this now. Yeah, crazy. Well, Hitler is a great example. World War II and the Nazi Party is a great example of a propaganda machine taken over.
Yeah,
and don't get me wrong, the word propaganda it can be used for good.
Yeah.
I saw in my research, I was looking up and it said, because of propaganda, we brush our teeth. And because of propaganda, we do this. And it was naming all the good things like media propaganda has done because of certain companies, right? And I'm like, I think the companies want to make money.
yeah.
Let's be honest.
That's the thing. Propaganda can be used to achieve a good end, but what I always go back to is, I believe it was Thomas Jefferson, who is actually known for being less Christian of the founding fathers. I mean, obviously,
yeah.
There's some
That's fair.
there's some wiggle room.
That's fair.
It depends on how you interpret his writings, but it's fair to say that a lot of people view him as the lesser Christian of the founding fathers. But he's actually quoted as saying that the government that they were forming was for a moral and religious people. That if if the people of the nation didn't have that moral standard, that religious code that they followed, then they might as well go back to tyranny.
Right.
And I see that in our culture today. It's like propaganda seems to be like a necessary thing for us because our culture has gone so far away from any kind of moral standard that, I mean, it's almost like our culture is infantile and we need the government to like take care of us,
Can I read this? It's out of Wikipedia, so
Yeah, go for it.
take it whatever you will. But it's the workings of the propaganda ministry that Goebbels was the head of in Nazi Germany. The propaganda ministry was organized into 7 departments: administration and legal, mass rallies, public health, youth, and race and radio, national and foreign press, films and film censorship, art, music, and theater, and protection against counter propaganda, both foreign and domestic.
Interesting.
That's really weird. And youth is just by itself. Or no,
Oh.
mass rallies, public health, youth, and race
Yeah.
are fumbled in there, and then after that's radio.
So have you ever seen the propaganda posters from the Nazis about the Jews?
I think I remember reading, seeing a few of them as a kid, like in researching.
The Jews
little
are
bit.
depicted as monkeys or rats.
Yeah.
There's a couple different examples.
I remember the one that really struck me was like the poster of like the evil hook-nosed Jewish businessman like squeezing the world dry.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
they're very, very powerful, emotionally charged imagery.
Well, the psychology behind that, right? And I saw this in my research of Edward Burney is the idea is that everybody hates rats. Monkeys are seen as dumb, primitive animals. So they would use these images to try to get you to associate the Jews with that animal. So the purpose of, they're just rats. They're just this.
Interesting because Allied propaganda to try and get American support for the war often depicted German soldiers in kind of a monkeyish sort of way. They were very feral, like brutish looking creatures.
Well, Burney was involved in that too.
Yeah,
Edward
yeah.
Burney did that propaganda too.
Yeah.
The guy's been all over the world.
Yeah.
Mostly for America.
Yeah.
But he's been around, and he has he is involved in a lot of your mommy is a commie.
Yeah.
You ever heard that phrase?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, from the 80s and the Cold War with
Yeah.
Russia. Communism, right? Which I get it. Communism. Who wants it? You're like, I'm a communist, no. But it's like if your mom...
We're going to clip that out.
It's going to end up on TikTok
on
somewhere.
Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook.
Yeah.
That's
Anyway.
a communist. So the idea is my mommy is a communist. So that connotation is even your own mother needs to be turned into the government.
Yep.
Think about that. Like, doesn't matter how much you love her, doesn't matter who she is, doesn't matter if it's relative. Love has no bounds because the government needs to know and come get the communists.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, David, we're not putting any Snarp Fangle stuff on Facebook until after the election. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but YouTube might get you too.
Yeah,
bud.
YouTube's going to crack down. They already are.
They
so.
are. There's a lot
Speaking
of
of propaganda.
well,
Yeah.
and that's algorithm stuff too. It's
Yeah.
not just malicious narratives. It's a computer doing.
I agree, but I would push back on it because who's creating the algorithms?
True.
And they're using algorithms as a scapegoat to say, "Oh, we can't." That's just how the algorithm works.
Yeah, and they
don't
do
know.
the 3 strike
And then,
thing.
Yeah, the 3
Same
strike thing, and they won't
Same
give you a reason. And it's like,
Nope.
well, you were just the community strike, and they're like, well, what the reason is? We don't know.
Yeah, you don't know who could
And
go
it's
in
so
and manipulate
vague
it.
and gray
Yeah.
space. It's like,
No, I get it.
it's frustrating. But I think it's a scapegoat because that's a great way of control. Because you can flip a couple switches in the back, access the server and the algorithm and the database, and flip a couple things and just say, oh, it's the algorithm. That's the decision they decided to do.
Well, what it does is
crazy.
it causes you to restrict yourself.
Yes.
Self-censor.
Yes.
It causes
and it
you to
puts
self-censor.
fear in others as well.
And puts fear in others as well. And the same with the propaganda of your mommy is a commie. It's like the fear is you got to get somebody who's red. You got to find them and you got to,
Turn them in.
yeah, or they're going to get you, And I'm not saying, I'm saying there's truth behind that, but it's a half truth. It's a half truth.
Yeah, that is funny because it's, growing up in school, we learned about McCarthyism and how he blacklisted all the, Hollywood peeps, whatever. And, he's very much characterized as like leading a witch hunt sort of a thing.
Right.
And then you really look at Hollywood and the media and all that. It really is full of commies.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, it's definitely using something that has truth behind it to try and hit you.
Right. Yeah, that's always how Satan works, though, is in half truths, like Adam and Eve. Right, you go back to that original story. When Eve was deceived, the word "deceived" in the Hebrew there is nashah, and it means to cause one to be led astray. Think of a fish. The analogy in the Hebrew is like a fishing pole and a fish, the bait, and the bait's taken, and now you can lead that fish wherever you want to go. Okay. And that starts with a half truth was in the garden, because he said, you will be like God if you eat the fruit. And unfortunately, she didn't know she was already made in the image of God.
Ooh.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the half lie is you haven't attained it yet. You have to do this to get there. And that's the nature of legalism itself. What's fascinating about that whole story that blows me away is after they ate and they found out they were naked and ashamed, their solution was to create clothes out of leaves and vegetation, which is fascinating because it's like, we're going to fix this problem on our own.
Yep.
And get this, what's really cool about that, paralleling to Christ, is that was insufficient, right? The banana leaf, I think Jumanji, no more banana leaves. When he sees the toilet paper, it comes out of the jungle. Yeah, no more banana leaves. So they had the banana leaves, and
I'm sure that they were fig leaves in the Bible.
oh, sorry.
And that stuff
You don't
itches.
know, David. It could have been banana.
It does say that. It says
Dang
they
it.
sewed fig leaves
Dang
together.
it.
Well, you bring up a good point.
Leave it to
because
David to know the Bible.
They, instead of relying, they've relied on God the whole time up to this point.
Absolutely.
And because of this one thing, they're like, well, we can't rely on him in this.
Well, they were afraid.
And they were afraid.
They were afraid.
Yeah.
They're going to hide. Every kid, when they steal a
Ashamed.
cookie, a kid steals a cookie, goes and hides. They break mama's china in the back kitchen. They run away and hide because they're afraid of the consequences.
Yeah.
And that's what they were doing. And then God says, where are you? You were walking with me in the cool of the day, and now where are you? I mean, it's like you've chosen to vacate the relationship. And that's what we do with God. And we try to fix it on our own. We hide our transgressions and our sins, and we try to protect it. We actually use legalism. That's what the whole leaves is, the fig leaf, is man trying to solve the problem without God.
Yep.
And that gets back to the whole book of Galatians, which is about legalism versus grace. And then God says, let me make you something. And what does he do? He takes animal skins. And the animal skins represent the sacrifice. Because that's what's left after you kill the animal, is the skins. And it's a beautiful shadow of Christ and the ultimate atonement for our sins on the cross, which is beautiful. So the gospel itself is in chapter 3 of Genesis.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Oh, it's awesome.
So cool. So anyway, I got off on that tangent. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But we were talking about half-truths, I think. And,
Yeah.
And that's what got me there, was this idea that Satan used the very first lie in his, the history of the world is a half-truth.
Yeah, there was something to it, because after Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden, God actually said, man has become like us.
Yeah.
So Satan wasn't lying, but he certainly left out some stuff.
Well, I think, David, this is where discernment comes back in, is we have to know what's a half-truth even. It's easy to see some truth sprinkled on something and it look very appetizing. But is it the whole truth? Or is it just a partial truth? See, it matters because you're consuming that thing. A little poop with frosting is still poop, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to discern that whole taste and smell analogy from the Hebrew. The judgment, that part of your judgment needs to be turned on where what is folly and what is not.